All right, what is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast weekly real estate tip. And today I'm here to break down why I personally believe that realtors are in big trouble. With what we are seeing taking place right now, I truly believe that over the next several years, realtors are going to be experiencing the biggest challenge that they've ever experienced. Anybody that's licensed today, whether you're a realtor, team leader, or broker owner, I believe with what we are seeing right now, and this is just going to continue to get uglier and uglier and uglier and progress and progress and progress. So I believe that over the next several years, you are going to be challenged in ways that you have never been challenged in your entire career. Now, before I jump into why I believe that that is the case, and then even more importantly, what I am doing and what I recommend that you do inside your real estate business to ensure that not just that you survive this challenge, but that you thrive and go out there and crush your real estate goals, regardless of the economy, regardless of the market. You and you alone dictate your success. But if you don't make the necessary adjustments, you are going to continue. You might already be experiencing pain, but you are going to experience much more pain and things are going to get a lot uglier before they get better. But before I jump into that, I just want to lead off with saying this. Look, I'm not somebody that operates from a place of fear. I'm not here to fear porn you guys. I am not here to, try to make you feel scared or use scared tactics. During times of chaos, during challenging times, during times of chaos, those always create the biggest opportunities. So yes, is this going to be challenging for most? Yes. And why is it going to be challenging for most? Because most do not change. Most do not adapt, shift, adjust, and go out there and make the necessary strategy adjustment shifts, treat their business as a business, go out there and develop and master the new skill sets that they need to go out there and master. That is just how the vast majority of human beings are wired. And that carries over to the vast majority of realtors and real estate team leaders and broker owners inside of our industry. So it's because of their inability to see what is, to go out there then and make the necessary adjustments, they're going to get crushed. But for you and I that are willing to go out there and make those necessary adjustments, that are willing to go out there and master the skills that we need and shift and pivot strategies in the way that we need to, there is going to be massive opportunities. So my recommendation is to not operate from a place of fear, but instead embrace this. And maybe you don't have to get excited about it, but I get and understand why, we might not get excited about, some of these challenging times, but definitely embrace it. Don't bury your head in the sand, embrace it. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. It's the best strategy to hedge when it comes to your overall business. And it's what I've done. And these 4 things I'm going to walk you through here is what I've personally done and what I'm doing right now at a very high level that's allowed me to grow and scale my business for 20 years straight, regardless of the market, whether it's been the biggest 2 booms that we've ever seen in U.S. recorded history, whether it be during the biggest market crash during recorded history, the great financial crisis, which I was, licensed and growing my real estate team and had some of my best years of my career during that time. But my business has continued to grow and scale year after year, regardless of who the president is, regardless whether it's been a seller's market, buyer's market, crash, boom, bust, anything in between, regardless of whoever the hell the president is, regardless of whatever interest rates are. My business has been able to grow and scale. And why? Because I have been willing to go out there and make these necessary adjustments. And I'm just telling you right now, I do not have a crystal ball. There could be outside interventions, and an outside intervention example might be the Federal Reserve during COVID coming in and buying $90 billion a month of mortgage-backed securities for over a 2-year period of time. They became essentially they were not just the primary, but essentially they were the only buyer of mortgage-backed securities, which then artificially lowered interest rates to the lowest that we've ever seen on purchase mortgages that we've ever seen in recorded history in the United States. So there might be some crazy intervention like that. But if things continue on the path that they're continuing on right now, shit is going to get ugly. And I'm not saying that the market is going to crash like it did in 2008. I don't have a crystal ball. All I'm saying is there is going to be some big adjustments. But what I'm very confident on is we are going to be in this very, very low and probably even declining transaction volume climate, this extremely competitive market climate for a long time to come. So again, don't operate from a place of fear, embrace this and go out there and control what you can control. All you and I can control is our attitude, our actions, our behaviors, the skill sets that we acquire. So why would I go out there and bitch, moan, and complain about the economy, about interest rates, about focus even on that? Yeah, I'm going to stay educated on that so I can educate my clients and know how to make the necessary adjustments in my business. But I'm not going to wish things were different. What the hell good does that do? I'm going to allocate all my time, energy, and focus onto what I can control. It's like, hey, here's the cards that we've been dealt. How do you best play that hand to go out there and make your real estate goals a reality, regardless of the fact? Okay, so why am I saying that realtors are in big trouble and shit is going to get much uglier way before it gets better? And look, this, you guys, is probably a decade-long problem. This is not going to be a quick turnaround. So there are five key components that I'm always paying attention to that allow me to kind of future pace my planning inside my real estate business. And this is, again, what has allowed me to shift, grow, and adapt to grow my business regardless of the overall. It's not because I'm somebody special. I was really blessed, lucky, and some of it was intention. I went out there and interviewed and just started working for the biggest badass I possibly could find in this industry. So I was also very intentional about finding the right mentor. And I found one of the top realtors, team leaders in the United States that I worked for my first 9 years of my career. That was my mentor. And one of the first things that he taught me how to go out there and do, because this was somebody that was licensed during, when interest rates were 20%. So we're talking, during the 80s, early 80s, during that time. This is somebody that, grew and scaled their business during the 87 crash, during the dot-com bubble, during 9/11. This was also somebody I was already working and being mentored by him by this point. But this was also somebody that, crushed it and adapted very great during the great financial crisis and pointed me in the right direction with being able to go out there and thrive during those times too. Having the right mentor is really important. So I was blessed, though, to have that right mentor in my market that I was able to identify, and then that they were willing to take me on as their mentee and share this stuff with me. So it's not that I'm somebody special. It's just that I just pay attention to this stuff, and I had a great mentor teach me the things I'm going to teach you here today. Okay, so the first thing I pay attention to is consumer debt to savings rate. Now, let me just say this. Here's what I don't do. Is I don't go to YouTube, I don't go to Twitter or X, or I don't go to social media. I don't go to secondary sources to get my intel and data. I go to primary sources. So I'm going to the Federal Reserve. I don't need somebody's opinion to tell me what they believe is going to happen. I'm going to study the actual data, see the actual actions taking place, and then from there, make the adjustments in my business that I need to. So if you go to the Federal Reserve of St. Louis, you can just Google this, Federal Reserve St. Louis, consumer debt to savings rate. That's the Department of the Federal Reserve that one of the things that they are responsible for tracking is consumer savings to debt rate. Who are you and I serving with the product that we sell? The consumer. Now, maybe your team leader broke grown that's out of production. Well, your client is maybe your agents. Well, who's your agent's client? This impacts all of us. So if we look at consumer debt to savings rate, it is currently at the biggest gap that we have ever seen, meaning debt skyrocketing, savings being depleted. So not only is it the biggest gap that we've seen in recorded history, it is also accelerating at a pace that we haven't seen before. Like, it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And a lot of this is due, just if we look at what's going on at a high level here, it's due to the devaluation of our dollar. If you are a Gen Z today in your 20s, you have 90% less purchasing power than a baby boomer did during their 20s. And why does that take place? Every time they turn on that printing press, that devalues our currency. When they pull money out of the future, pull it into the now, that devalues our currency. A lot of people are thinking about devaluation of currency just through inflation, which, yeah, that's part of it, but that's a small piece of it right now. The bigger piece of this is the $100 trillion being added to the deficit every 100 days that our government is doing. And that is just to sustain. Like, they're actually going in further and further and further debt. I shouldn't even say that's sustainable, with that. This is just going to continue to get larger and larger and larger. This is just for them to currently honor their current liabilities, honor the interest that they have to pay on that debt, And if we look at this, like politicians can say whatever the hell they want to say. Their job is to go out there and just spew a bunch of bullshit and lie and trick people into thinking they're going to change. And, people get caught up in that all the time. I'm thinking, oh, this person's going to be the savior. At least in my, I just turned 43 yesterday. So my 43 years of life, I've yet to witness a savior showing up, right? And maybe that will happen with the second coming, but, no, there's no man, woman, politician that's going to go out there and save us. They spew a bunch of bullshit. So we don't listen to what they say. We watch what they do. Okay. They continue to expand programs domestically, globally. So this is just going to get worse and worse and worse. From the beginning of the debt spiral that we're in. Go to the US debt clock. Go to just Google US debt clock and go out there and watch that bad boy just stack up. It's just boom, 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 boom. It won't be too long before we're sitting at $50 trillion of freaking debt, right? So with that, if you look at least from my mentors and experts that I trust, their knowledge on this that are much more smarter than me when it comes to understanding money, is that the run rate of printing right now, the $1 trillion being added to the deficit every 100 days, is devaluing our currency at 8%. Then that's 8% year over year. So then you stack on that CPI inflation. If we believe that number, I don't. I think it's probably 2, 3, maybe even 4 times that. If you just pay attention to your life, when they're like, oh, CPI inflation is 3%. It's like, okay, like, does your life only go up 3%? Calculate all your utilities, like everything in your household, personal expenses, and your business, like shit is going up and up and up, right? At a much higher level than 3%. But let's just say you want to believe the numbers. Maybe you believe that, the powers that be, the institutions always tell us the truth and give us all the, let's just say you want to believe that. Okay, fine. That is still about 11.5% devaluation of our currency every single year. So that means your dollar is losing 11% every single year at the current run rate. So as this expands, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. So then from there, we have wages not keeping up with the devaluation. And that's what is called stagflation. So we're experiencing massive stagflation. So cost of life is just going up and up and up, and people are forced to be in a position to just stack and rack up more and more debt to go out there and live life. And that's why we're seeing the debt to savings rate just skyrocket at the pace that it is. And that will happen until, well, keep happening, but then, you get to a point where people just start breaking, and they are breaking right now. If you look at, you got 12% roughly of all FHA, might be slightly above that. So 12% if we round the numbers up, 12% of all FHA loans throughout the United States currently in 30 plus days default. That's only a couple percent off from the peak of defaults on FHA during the great financial crisis. Okay, so that's number one that I'm always paying attention to, because that is our customer base that is making up the majority of our transactions in our industry. The secondary thing that I'm always paying attention to is new mortgage purchase applications. Where are those at right now? I pay attention to that every single month. Go to the Mortgage Bankers Association, again, First Sources. I'm looking at that because I want to sit there and see, that is a great indicator. If that's going up, going down, okay, is the consumer getting in a position? Is there becoming more demand to go out there and buy? Because if you think about this, these are people applying for mortgages. So to get pre-qualified. So these are then going to be your purchasers in the next 60, 90, 120. So let's just call it, 2 to 6 months. So if we look at right now, that is at a 35-year low as of last month. So even though prices are softening in most markets, even though interest rates are down, a decent percentage from where they were at the peak of high interest rates, we're continuing to see buyer demand come down and down and down. And then pretty much in every market out there, I'm seeing listings going up with purchase demand going down. Now, I have coaching clients in other markets, like my market's like straight free fall right now. Like, people won't admit it yet. They're not, especially in our industry, people have, cognitive biases. They just only want to see what they want to see. They're not actually just paying attention to the hard data and looking at it objectively, not attaching, their own opinion to it. Like, just study the data, remove what you want to happen, just like be scientific about this stuff. It's like, hey, I don't have a dog in the fight on what the outcome is. Right? It's just like, hey, here's what the outcome, like here's where the data is, and here's what we got from the outcome of that. That's what a real scientist would do. So don't allow yourself, because it's too easy for us to then become blind of what is actually taking place. And I saw this during the great financial crisis as well. I had so many agents in my marketplace that just were burying their head in the sand. Oh, real estate doesn't crash. It will never crash, whatever. And I'm like, dude, the signals are all there that all this is taking place. Right now, I didn't know, like, I'm not going to sit there and bet on or plant my flag on, oh yeah, we're going to experience a market crash. I mean, I'm always the first to say I do not have a crystal ball, right. But then from there, it's like, okay, I'm going to hope for the best, plan for the worst. So as I'm seeing month over month inventory rate grow and grow and grow, which was, it grew progressively, expanded for 31 straight months till it then kind of free falled in 2008. But by then, I mean, we were already well into a declining buyer's market. Like, you just hit that critical mass point where then just things break, right? From there. So I'd already positioned myself and already got educated on short sales. I already positioned myself in with banks and outsourcers. I was already in that position because I was just watching the data with this. So even if you're in, like, okay, I got clients in other markets that are still in a seller's market, but even those that are in seller's market still with multiple offers on every property and high buyer demand, it is softening. So softening is always like when you start seeing that slowdown, right? That is the beginning of a potential decline, right? Now you might see it normalize. Real estate is very hyper local, but regardless, what we are seeing across the board right now is low transaction volume demand, right? Okay, when I look at new mortgage purchase applications, that is something I'm always looking at because that gives me a signal of where we're going to be in the next, 6 to 12 months. I'm sorry, the next, 2 to 6 months with overall transaction volume. The third thing that I'm paying attention to is months of listing inventory. Every single month, I go into my market and I'm tracking, okay, what are we looking at? Because this stuff, it's like that analogy or that legend of boiling frogs in the pot. I don't know if that's true, but we've all heard this saying out there of the legend of boiling frogs in a pot, right? Like, if you put them in hot water, they'll bounce out. But if you keep it in warm or just room temperature, and then you slowly heat up, slowly put some fire to that, and it slowly warms up, they get comfortable, and all of a sudden they boil and blah, 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 blah. Right. Well, this is what takes place when we're looking at months of inventory, because months of inventory, we typically don't see the impact on that months of inventory. That is a lead measure. And then as far as the months of inventory is a lead measure to what the outcome is. And that outcome is usually 6 to 12 months after the fact. So I'm always watching that, right? Because I know, okay, under 3 months of inventory is going to be a seller's market. Now, this isn't perfect science, but it's a good gauge to go off of, right? So, okay, for under 3 months of inventory, okay, typically there's going to be more demand than there are listings, and there's going to be different levels of this. Okay, then we got like 3.1 months to, call it, 4.9 months. That's going to be a more neutral market. And then beyond 5 months starts to be a pretty hardcore, it starts to go into a buyer's market territory. And then, 6 months, 7 months becomes really hardcore, where then if I know we're getting, to 7 months of inventory, like, that's where I'm going to start. And if we're scaling beyond that, based on what the growth rate is, like, that's when I'm going to be going crazy at getting into REOs. And I'm already doing that. I'm already applying to and having my coaching clients go out there and apply to, all the different asset management firms. And people tell me, oh, dude, that's like, why are you applying right now? You're too early, whatever. We're not going to see that. Okay. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. I'd rather be in there. When we're watching pre-foreclosures, 30-day lates go up every single month progressively. It's just a matter of time, right? With this stuff. So months of inventory, because at the end of the day, this stuff is really about supply and demand. Then from there, the last thing that I pay attention to is what the government and Fed, because Federal Reserve supposedly isn't part of the government, even though they're kind of like the fourth leg of the government. I don't buy this whole they're a separate entity at this point. I don't know who controls who, but they're definitely intertwined more than they're not intertwined. But I'm watching both of their actions, not what they say, but what they do and what their actions are. And not even just, okay, well, we voted on this policy, here's what's going to go on. I want to watch the actions that they are doing, because I know not everybody, and I'm not trying to sound cynical here, but I know that the vast majority of the time, what gets spewed off, what we get told, is just a bunch of lies and a bunch of bullshit. So, and that's just, it's not even that, this is just it's human beings. Right. And again, I'm not saying, to be like, I'm not a cynical human being. I believe in being an open-minded skeptic, but I've just learned that words are hollow. Actions show what people value, so I'm going to watch what they do, not what they say. So as I'm paying attention to those four things, that then allows me to go out there and plan strategically for what is to come. So making sure that I'm going to be paying attention to where the opportunities are at now, but then based on what's going on with those four things, that is good indicators of telling me where things are going in the future. And what I'm very confident about is we are going to be in this very low transaction volume climate around this, like what are we seeing right now? About 4 million, single family detached homes, give or take a little bit, but around that range year over year. And which kind of seems to be, kind of the bottom floor. It's like we've hit a ceiling of about 7 million units a year and a low of about 4 million. But I believe based on everything that we're seeing that we are going to be in, again, that low transaction volume climate. Then from there, if you watch my podcast or listen to my podcast about a week ago when I talked about the 2025, market crash, and I'm not predicting a market crash in 2025. What I was saying in that podcast, okay, in my market, if things continue the way that they're continuing, I believe we will be at or close to crash territory before the end of 2025. Because all real estate market crash means is prices are down from 20% from the peak. And that's not going to take a whole lot. My market's already softening so much. Like if this continues and there's no outside manipulation intervention that's artificial, that isn't letting the markets do what the markets are going to do, like before the end of 2025, my market will be there. And the other markets might be there, but so crash isn't anything necessarily negative, just means valuations are below 20% from where they were at that peak of that cycle. But because of these reasons, right? Because we're now in the most unaffordable time to be alive as a U.S. citizen, in recorded history. It's never been more unaffordable to be alive. It's never been more unaffordable to just exist than it exists right now. So there's just a much smaller percentage of human beings that can and or willing to transact in real estate. So as we got listing inventory coming up and up and up, we got lesser and lesser buyers that are able to participate in that. Okay, we'll see what it does to the market, but it's going to create some extremely challenging times. And with everything that's going on right now, because people, consistently compare this to the great financial crisis. People today are if we speak in general terms on the masses, are in a much worse off position than they were leading into the great financial crisis. So I'm not saying it is, because again, I don't know. I'm not going to lie to you and pretend that I know, but I would not be surprised if this is much worse than the great financial crisis. I would not be surprised with what we are getting ready to go into is much worse than the Great Depression, because there's some other factors, right? Like leading to the great financial crisis, that was a U.S. issue that kind of spilled to the rest of the globe, right? This is, okay, every country is in massive trouble right now. Every country is experiencing this massive debt crisis. Every country, it's just a shit show everywhere. And it's a lot worse in most other countries than it is in the U.S. So this is a global problem. And when we look at the debt issues that we're experiencing globally right now, these are magnitudes of scale that we've never seen, never witnessed, and never had to deal with as a country. And when people are like, oh, we're going to be fine, it's always been fine before. Okay, you got a lot of trust and faith in the powers that be. If I just study history, like this is the shit that makes empires fall, right? And I'm not saying that we're going to fall right now, but if we don't continue and make some adjustments, like at some point it's inevitable. It took a long time for Rome to fall. But this is the kind of shit that causes empires to fail, of what we are now seeing on all fronts, here as a country. Okay, so because of all these different factors taking place, if we look at the debt, if we look at, debt to savings rate, when we look at all the things that I already talked about here, it's really just creating the perfect storm for extreme challenges ahead. And this is why I believe over the next several years, it will be the biggest challenge that anybody that's licensed today has ever experienced, including myself, right? So, okay, been doing this 20 years, went out there and, even through the great financial crisis, had to pivot. Now, when I say I dominated and crushed it in the great financial crisis, like, dude, it was a pain in the ass. I had about 6 months there of having to adapt and shift and pivot. And that wasn't necessarily because I didn't have business. That was because I had to front banks all the freaking money to go out there and repair their properties. They've kind of shifted policy since then, but this was in the beginning of it, and they weren't really prepared for this massive wave of foreclosures. So I had to stroke all the checks, for utilities, cash for keys, repairs. So it didn't take but like 4 months to a point where I had loaned out the bank $250,000 banks, not just bank, but banks that my banks and asset management firms I work for, over $250,000 of my own money. So it's like, okay, as soon as I was making money, I was having to then stroke that money out to fund the bank, to essentially loan the money to the banks so they could then repair these properties. And they would reimburse me. And not all of them did. Some of the banks went under and went bankrupt, and I lost, there's one particular bank that I lost about $40,000 of receivables because that bank went under, so I didn't get all of that back, but, got to that point very quickly where my money went out, was going out quicker than it was, or as quick, if not quicker than it was coming in, so like, going 6 months without a paycheck and having to exhaust personal savings to just fund these banks. And if I didn't say yes to this stuff, and if I didn't do that, I would have lost that business. So it put me in definitely a hard position, but that was a new challenge that I had to learn to go out there and do. Because if you remember during those times, you couldn't go get a line of credit, even though 800 credit score, even though whatever, like banks wouldn't issue a line of credit. You couldn't go out there. Like if you didn't have that money in the bank, luckily I had some money in the bank at that point. But okay, so now I want to walk you through though, the 4 things that I recommend that you make sure that you do and or doing so you can be in the best position to go out there and thrive, adapt, shift, change. It's not the strongest that survive. It's he or she that adapts in the most effective way that goes out there and not just survives, but it's a combination of adaptability and strength that allows you not just to survive, but thrive. Okay, so first thing is to get lean. And when I talk about getting lean, I'm not talking about your percentage of body fat. I'm talking about from your expense standpoint. And I'm not just talking your real estate business. Get lean in your personal. Cut out all the bullshit. Anything that isn't necessary right now, cut it out. Like cut out the freaking Hulu, the Netflix, just anything that's just luxury bullshit that you don't need. I would cut all that out because right now, like you want to be that speedboat. You don't want to be the Titanic, the cruise ship that can't turn, on a quick point where, so when that iceberg shows up, boom, you're screwed. You're going to, nail into it. Like you want to be able to pivot and shift very, very fast. And you want to have as much reserves on hand as you possibly can, going into these more challenging times. So I would assess your personal life. Like, okay, I'm sitting here drinking, some coffee here in the office, watching this YouTube. You can pull up my coffee cup right now. Most of you are watching or listening to this. But okay, like I'm not going to Starbucks, but instead I go to Costco or wherever my office manager gets these, gets the type of Starbucks coffee that I like, the K-cups. So instead of going to Starbucks and paying $3 or $4 for, whatever a coffee costs, I haven't been to Starbucks in a lot of years, I'm still getting the same coffee. I just make it in my Keurig here at my office, so just little shit like that. Although because we waste and exhaust so much money, all that entertainment, eating out. My recommendation is to just get as lean as you possibly can. Stupid car leases, stupid expensive car payments. Like, okay, do you really need that? Or can you go pay cash for that $10,000 Kia that's every bit as reliable, that $10,000 Honda Accord that's every bit as reliable? Like your clients do not give a shit if you have a fancy car. So my recommendation is to get lean as you can. So you're operating with the necessities in your business and personal. Now, when it comes to your business, make sure you're being intelligent with this. You don't want to cut out things that are going to hurt you in your business. So my rule of thumb in business is, okay, like I'm going to make sure I'm tracking every dollar coming in and every dollar going out. Hopefully you're doing this in your business. You're running your monthly P&L statements, looking through your expense and revenue statements, but then from there, it's like, okay, I have a rule of thumb every month when I'm going through, my expenses. Okay, is this making me money? Is this saving me money or saving me time? So there are certain investments that I need to make in my business. Okay, I'm going to invest in my systems. I'm going to invest in, certain staff and people. If you're a team leader or broker owner, I'm going to invest to make sure I have the right information with the right mentors, and I need them to guide me. I'm going to invest in the lead sources that are giving me the acceptable ROI that I need. So like with my marketing dollars, okay, if I'm sticking $1, I better get 4 back. So if I stick in, if I'm paying $1,000 a month for this, okay, am I getting a $4,000 a month return on that investment with my marketing dollars? If I'm not, okay, then maybe I need to assess that and make some big adjustments, right? So getting lean, like just stripping out the waste, stripping out the bullshit, right? So number one recommendation is to get lean. And I know most of you won't do it, but for the few of you that will and take action on, you'll thank your future self later for that, right? Okay, number 2, make sure you are treating your business as a business. Winging it is not cutting it right now, and it's definitely not going to cut it with what we're going into. So you got to treat your business as a business. So what do I mean by treating your business as a business? Okay, number 1, you need to make sure that you have a strategy plan with precision. So you know exactly what you must do to win every single day. Like when you walk in that office, every single day, you need to know what you need to do to win. Here's how many leads I need to generate per lead sources. Here's how many reach outs. Here's how many conversations. Here's how many appointments set. Like you need to know with precision what exactly you must do to go out there and win. Okay, then from there, you got to have a process-based business. So process is just step-by-step documentation of your strategies. So here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. Processes is one of the most effective ways to allow you to be effective and efficient inside your real estate business. Then from there, those processes live inside systems. Pros have a system-based business to ensure that their strategies are executed on the same way each and every single time, and things are not missed, and they're able to execute on those strategies in the most effective and efficient way. The next component to treating your business as a business is you better be tracking your numbers. It is an impossibility to go out there and create predictability in your business. It's an impossibility to know what to scale up, what skill sets you need to add, where your holes are inside your business. So there's always 2 red flags if I know somebody's winging it. Number 1, if they show up to the office and they're like, okay, I'm going to work hard today. And then they have to ask themselves, what am I going to do today? Number 2, if they're not daily tracking their essential KPIs inside their business. And I'm just telling you right now, you can choose to listen to me or not. And you probably already know this if you're just winging it and you're not doing the things I just said, because your business is probably already getting hurt right now. So, I mean, most people I'm speaking to right now that are just still winging it, their business is down, not just a little bit, but a significant amount, versus the last previous decade of time when we had all that low hanging fruit. And look, when times are good, you can get away with lazy practices. When times are more challenging, like, dude, it's he or she that's the best operator that wins. Okay, number 3 is rein in your focus and make sure that you are focusing on highly effective sniper strategies. So what I mean by sniper strategies, you are targeting those that have the highest probability of needing your services in this given time. If you are targeting, if you were doing a lot of lead gen, lead follow-up, and you're like, man, I'm just sick of, talking to these unqualified, low quality leads. Nobody's motivated. Look, that is because you are not targeting the right people. You haven't shifted yet to a sniper strategy. You got to target people that need to buy and sell, not that want to buy and sell, that need to buy and sell. So rein in your focus in a highly effective sniper strategy and or sniper strategies. Why do I say rein in your focus? One of the biggest challenges I'm seeing right now with a lot in our industry when they're reaching out to me for help for the free coaching calls that I offer here on the podcast, is they're doing like 6 to 8 things as an individual agent. Well, I'm doing this, and then I'm trying this, and then I'm doing this, and then I'm trying this, and then I'm doing this. I'm like, dude, look, like everything works, nothing doesn't. But what you're doing is because you're trying to go after too many things, you're trying all these different things, you're doing everything half-ass. So you're I don't even say you're a jack of all trades and master of none. You're not even a jack. Like you're putting bullshit output or bullshit input, bullshit, intention and strategy and skill set into these things. So you're just wasting time, right? Like, okay, like identify what your couple things are that you are going to do. So it's like, your past client sphere of influence. That's going to be the one leg that we all have inside of our business. Then from there, like what is your, maybe 2, 3 max, 1, 2, 3, proven strategies that you are going to consistently do at an extremely high level, get the dial in strategies, dial in processes, systems. You're able to master the skill set so you can do a shit ton of those, right? So that's what I mean by reining in your focus. Can't be operating like a freaking squirrel mind right now. You've got to be laser focused. Okay, so then the last thing here is be hard. And what I mean by this is, look, there is an abundance of weak-minded human beings in our industry. There's just an abundance of weak-minded human beings that exist on the planet right now. Life has been so good for so long that most people are complacent. Most people are decadent. Most people are addicted to comfort. You can't allow that to be you right now. Like, you got to be hard, man. You got to be strong. You got to be hard. You can't allow yourself to become a victim and whine and complain. Oh, it's so hard. No, just shut up, man. This is what it is. Like, everybody is going to go through, in all aspects of life, but definitely in business, you're going to go through certain pressure tests. And I don't know anybody that's been in business long-term that's created big success that hasn't went through their series of pressure tests. And pressure, if we look at to coal, what does pressure do to coal? Okay, most pieces of coal crumble. The vast majority of coal, when a pressure is applied, that piece of coal, the pieces of coal crumble. But then there's a small percentage of that coal that end up handling that pressure really well and become a freaking diamond. So my recommendation to you is commit to becoming a diamond. Okay, hey, no matter how hard this is, no matter how much resistance, no matter how difficult, I'm embracing the challenge. I'm accepting the challenge. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to show up. I'm not going to sit there and whine and complain of, oh my gosh, I'm having to work so hard. This is so challenging. Like, let all our other freaking competitors that are going to get wiped out operate with that victim weak mentality. Like, we need to be strong right now. Right. So this is where it comes into play. You might have to bust out your 12-hour work days, 10-hour work days, 7 days a week. You know, just, you got to do what you got to do. In life and business, there's times of peace and there's times of war. We had just had a decade of peace, and peace, if you study history, peace is always followed by war. It is now wartime. And now you gotta battle until the battle is over. Right. Or you die and your business dies. Right. So up to you there of which path that you want to take. But I know if you're watching or listening to the GSD Mode podcast, you're somebody that wants to go out there and be victorious in this battle. So those are the 4 things that I recommend that you do to go out there and make sure that you are prepared and you know, from a mental standpoint, plus, you know, strategy standpoint and so forth. So I hope that you found this helpful. Please go check out gsdmode.com, or I encourage you to check out gsdmode.com for more additional free resources and trainings. You know, I highly encourage you guys to jump on my 6 steps to 3xing your real estate business or more in the next 12 months. That free 3-hour in-depth masterclass training is built right now for exactly, okay, what do you need to do to make sure that you have all of these things dialed in at an extremely high level to scale during this very challenging time. It is a game-changing webinar, 100% free, no strings attached. You can go to gsdmode.com. You'll see it on the front page. Register. I have it going on daily right now. So I highly encourage you to go take that while it's taking place. I know 3 hours is a long time to sit, you know, but the reason it's 3 hours is, look, I'm not here to deliver some 45-minute shallow bullshit training to you guys. I want to make sure that you have all the information that you need while you're on the training. Then I also give you the resource guide after the fact so you can have success executing what you learn on that training. And it's all for free, right? So if you want to take advantage of it, go to gsdmode.com. All right, guys, keep crushing it. Truly appreciate all your support, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace.